So this is the 0710 hours GMT on Monday, the 10th of July 2023. This is the Khoodeelaar television channel being broadcast only on the internet, not on satellite, not on terrestrial, not on cable platforms. This is the Khoodeelaar campaign. Khoodeelaar is a word politically created, authored, and scripted by me in 2003, approximately. After learning about the then plot to dig a hole right in the middle of the Brick Lane area under the pretext of the Crossrail line. I learned about that in December 2003 during a walk I took from Brick Lane to Bishopsgate, the Bishopsgate entrance to the Liverpool Street complex of stations in London. I took that walk with K. Jordan, and after learning about the main plot, I decided to launch a campaign, and I spelled out the key features of the campaign to K. Jordan later, not on that day, because I saw her up to the bus stop where she took a bus to her home in Kentish Town in Camden. But as soon as I spoke to her after that, whenever that was, the day after or the day after, I spelled out to K. Jordan the details. And the main thing that I said to K. Jordan was that we shall be targeting the local council, the London Borough of Tower Hamlets. Targeting intended to make no compromise on the defense of the community against the plot to destroy Brick Lane. That was me talking to K. Jordan. And I said to her that the council, Tower Hamlets Council at that time, was being fronted by a councillor who claimed to be representing the Spitalfields and Banglatown ward, called Abbas Uddin alias Halal. I reorganized the name Abbas Uddin alias Halal in order to tell the truth about his mysterious dropping of the Abbas from his name and replacing the Abbas with Halal. Now, Halal was a part of his name that we never heard about until he introduced it without any previous warning. I believe that the reason why Abbas Uddin alias Halal dropped the Abbas from his name was to do with the fact that on the records, on the files, Abbas would be the name for him on the records about his bankruptcy. In any case, Abbas Uddin alias Halal and a number of other individuals allegedly got paid handsomely. Now, we have seen no documentary evidence of that, but that has been the dominant allegation. One or two sources that we were in contact with, say 2003 to 2004, they said that Abbas Ali was one of the people who had financial interests and stakes in the business that was situated opposite the East London Brick Lane Mosque. And that one of the things that later happened was that that particular complex was sold, but it was resold at several times the price that it was sold for, which meant that not Abbasuddin Alias, but one of his previous business partners in that complex ownership benefited to the tune of several £1,000,000. Now, anyone who knows the average level of income that people in and around Brick Lane are on and have been on and had been on would know that even £1,000,000 would be too much more than what the ordinary average person would receive or expect as their ordinary legitimate income. So there are many factors that were involved, entangled, related to the corrupt aspect of the Crossrail hole plot. And none of that was transparent. None of the activities or exchanges was transparent, which is one of the strongest points that we had and still have about the behavior of these individuals. Now, that was 2003. So, 2003, 93, 10 years, 83, 20 years, 73, 30 years. So, in December 1973, on Sunday the 2nd of December 1973, the Sunday Times, we called it the Color magazine of the Sunday Times, carried a piece byline to a white racist woman called Leslie Garner. That was 30 years before the conversation I had with K. Jordan in December 2003 during the walk from Brick Lane to Bishopsgate about the Crossrail hole plot against Brick Lane. Now that was 30 years. And for the 30 years since the 2nd of December 1973, I had been campaigning to defend the whole community, and by focusing extra emphasis on the defense of the Brick Lane area, which is the name synonymous with the individual migration linked international Bangladeshi community outside of Bangladesh. not connected with anything to do with the Bangladesh party politics, but the very physical existence of the Bangladeshis, and not to imitate the Indian non resident Indians, I call ourselves overseas Bangladeshis because that is independent of any party political affiliation and also any allegiance to the another country, India, non-resident. I mean, this is the kind of terminology that the mental slaves in Bangladeshi politics, Bangladesh-based politics, readily use and imitate and copy. One of the arguments that I had against the various factions, were claiming the things autonomous East Pakistan, by definition, would have to have partnership with others other than the West Pakistan in the context of the autonomy. And if that other was the Federal Republic of India, then that would be, in terms of autonomy, in terms of independence and autonomy, it would be worse than the partnership that the campaign for autonomy was trying to break away from, which was the federal integrated unitary kind of union with the western part of Pakistan. In the 1960s, I'm talking about 1961, 62, 63, 64, up to 65, up to the time before the declaration by then Field Marshal Ayub Khan, the Chief Martial Law Administrator, as he called himself, and the headline on the front page of the Dhaka based daily English language newspaper, the Pakistan Observer. My memory, this is based on my memories, of talking about 1965, September 1965. So, we are at war. That is what I remember reading on the front page. Now, the Republic of India in 1965 was, of course, much less fascistic, much less fascistic, and much less corrupt than the Republic of India now. And the Republic of India became the 1965 war between India and Pakistan was that India would not be helping the cause of the autonomy of the eastern Pakistan at the time, whatever it would be called. Now, people who don't know what happened and people never knew what was happening are, of course, prone to buy and swallow slogans. Now, there is no idea among anyone that is active and physically within Bangladesh today who was active in the 1960s. There is no idea among any of them as to what the difference was between autonomy and the ultimate logical extension to it, which was something that was not ever mentioned publicly, but logically it would be secession. In other words, separation from the East and West Pakistan unity. So on the 6th of September 1970, that is 5 years since the September 1965 confrontation between Pakistan and India, there was a short meeting at 32 Dhanmondi, the home of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. And that was to mark his return from a meeting in West Pakistan on that day, 6th of September. And I noticed that Sheikh Mujib was speaking carelessly. My observation over 3 years, 1967 to 1970, of the various speeches and appearances made by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman politically, publicly. I never went to his residence until 6th of September 1970. So every observation that I made of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was made at a public venue. And for 3 very long years, I suffered from indefinite waiting. And I still suffer from the mysterious absence of a statement by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. What was he talking about? Because nothing he said was any different from what a man in our village in Sondarpur in Silot had said in 1965. Man is passed away now. His name was Mozom Mia. Because of the age, he was senior to me, of course. We called him Mozom Dada. And his reaction to the news that war had begun between India and Pakistan was that he would go to the border, and the border would be not far from Biani Bazar to the east of our village. He would go there to confront the Indians, nearest Indians, and his weapon would be sticks. Now, of course, Mozam Dada was entitled to think that, and he was entitled to express his thought in that way, as he did. But how far was it from the real logistics and the logistical challenges? So, when I attended the various events from 1967 to 1970, well, to the 6th of September 1970, that is the last time I think I had physical view of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. I could not hear a constitutional declaration by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman at all. Now, if anyone knows that between 1967 and 1970, at any public event which was reported, Sheikh Mujib did make a constitutional statement contrary to what I am saying, then I would be more than obliged to accept that piece of evidence, and I shall consider that and I shall review and accordingly update my comments. In the absence of such evidence, I am saying again, the Sheikh Mujibur Rahman did not make any constitutional statement. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman did not make any internationally, legally valid statement. And as I have said before, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was being physically kind of very closely surrounded by the likes of this man who later turned out to be something other than loyal to him, but that was after Shah Mujibur Rahman was murdered in August 1975. So the people who surrounded Shah Mujibur Rahman at the public events that I attended, I observed as an objectively defined journalist during on dates between 1967 and September 6th of September 1970. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman did not make comprehensive constitutional law statements. And the one that he made on the 6th of September 1970, in a way, summed up the absence of constitutionality, legality, and the international treaties and standards. The biggest error that Sheikh Mujibur Rahman made on the 6th of September in that statement that I did not publish because I wanted to protect him from immediate imprisonment and trial for treason. For that reason, I did not publish something that would have completely, immediately landed him in the custody of the Pakistan authorities and he would have been triable for treason. And as the students of international law know, it's a domestic thing, and he could have been executed for treason. So I protected him by not publishing what was definitely going to be a treasonous statement. And I share this now, many years later, because it's no longer applicable and it cannot do him any damage, but it can shed light on what independence and freedom entails. He said that he had given notice to the West Pakistanis that if they were to come to East Pakistan, they would be banned from landing. Words to that effect. Well, that is completely treasonous. Because there was nothing as a prelude and nothing that enlightened or illustrated that statement. It didn't last very long. It was less than an hour, this whole conversation that we had at 30th Dhanmondi. I was there, another four, maximum four other individuals. To my knowledge, all of them journalists. And I'm sure that none of the others did anything to publish that statement. So So all of them were very protective of him, as I was and I remain as a person protective of Sheikh Mujib, despite the fact that he had these serious gaps in his quote leadership. Now, the argument for autonomy and the argument for independence that I predicted in the 1960s are now the biggest arguments at the very center of the existence of Bangladesh as a so called sovereign country. Because the allegations against Sheikh Hasina, the biggest allegation against her from objectively definable patriotic Bangladeshis is that she is a stooge of the Indians. And I have pointed out before, and I'm pointing out now, I mean, compared with Sheikh Hasina, the West Bengal Prime Minister, Chief Minister, Mamata Banerjee, is far more independent and far more outspoken against the Hindutva criminals, Amit Shah and Narendra Modi, and their cabal. In fact, the facts show that Mamata Banerjee is the only opposition voice in all of India today. She is not opposing enough, that is one thing, but she is the only opposition voice, really. Because despite the fact that she has condemned correctly the reassignation of the idea of citizenship of India, aimed at eliminating the Muslims' entitlement by birth to Indian citizenship. Despite the fact that she has made critical comments and interventions about that, against that, she has not gone far enough. And the same, of course, applies to all the things, all the issues that are connected with the increasing stupidity by the Hindutva regime affecting the entirety of Kashmir. And then all of these go back to the negotiations that took place in July 1947, leading to the August so called settlements, 15th of August for India and 14th of August for Bangladesh, for Pakistan. The smaller territories, Junagadh, Manvada, Goa, on the western, southwestern side, and the northeastern, what is called collectively the Seven Sisters, the seven little enclaves, if you like. So, India, Republican India, as the Manipur massacres of the last 50 days show, the Republic of India is not the same to all the people. The Republic of India is a cabal run under the banner of Hindutva, but actually it is a corrupt cabal that is using Hindutva to keep the majority of the people brainwashed, hoodwinked. that they are being served by defenders of Hinduism. They are not. That's a lying cabal. But it's a cabal that is controlling 80% of India, which is disenfranchised. Kashmir is the most prominent one, but the northeast of India are absolutely as disenfranchised, as discriminated against as Kashmir. Of course, people don't talk about Junagadh and Manbhadar and Goa, but those are parts of the equation that were on the table. But because of the corrupt role played by Mountbatten and the British, and they had a deal with Jawaharlal Nehru, all the main issues about the future democracy and future accountability of the areas affected by the creation of the two main federal states, Pakistan and India, all the issues were swept under the carpet. That is one thing. The other thing is that because of the lack of clarity on the part of those who created the political platform for Sheikh Mujib, they allowed they allowed a pack of falsehoods to be paraded as the equivalent of the Bengali rights mouthed by Sheikh Mujib. They were not rights for Bengalis, because if Bengali rights were being actually advocated, then the state of Bangladesh today would not have existed. Bangladesh would have been a democratic country or society. It never has been. What Major Zia Rahman was trying to do was to move towards normalizing democracy, but that was long, long away. What Ershad did was to fuck up the experiment that Zia was working on. And of course, Ershad was followed by Khaleda Zia, who is not a politician. I mean, it shows that she is not a politician because of what she has said about the Rohingyas. Completely misunderstood the Rohingyas and the international implications. And the General Secretary is, as compared to Khaleda, is of course knowledgeable compared to her, but is not knowledgeable enough. Even if he had more knowledge than he has, he still would not progress because of the lack of others in the BNP kind of collection. The BNP politically, apart from Fakhrul Islam, Mirza Fakhrul Alamgir, is politically a barren, an empty outfit. And it is even more barren because they have not taken advantage of the record created by Ziaur Rahman. Many of the things that Ziaur Rahman did were only early days, obviously. But in the context of Bangladesh, what Ziaur Rahman did were novelties, new things, including creating an alliance of the states in the Southeast Asian region. That was an initiative that placed Bangladesh on a platform as a leader. Bangladesh is not a leader now, has not been since Ziaur Rahman was assassinated. And of course, as Khaleda is not politically suitably kind of intellectually fit, so is Sheikh Hasina. I mean, it's a complete embarrassment that somebody like Sheikh Hasina has been there in the post that she has been for as long as she has been. And that shows that I've said before, the so-called student leaders of Bangladesh, well, the Bangladesh, there's a movement. Where are they? They don't exist. But that didn't matter. They were no more than agitators egged on by their masters from behind the scenes, whoever they were. And in the last 50 plus years, whatever their ages are and how many of them are alive, these so-called leaders of the 1969 movement, futile as they were 54, 55 years ago, they have not made a stand, and they cannot make a stand against the subjugation of the state of Bangladesh by another country. And there is absolutely no excuse for their failure, except that they are mentally timid and mentally deficient, intellectually completely empty. The fact that the Rohingyas are starving now, effectively, because they are being denied the money for essential food and resources, and there is no outcry. There is no outcry for their rights. This is something that is the Rohingyas' existence in Chittagong and within Bangladesh otherwise has brought in money for the Bangladesh government, international donations, and nobody has seen the actual accounts of how much money intended for the help of the Rohingyas has been pocketed by Sheikh Hasina and her regime. There was a danger that that would happen. Now, the fact that there is no outcry about that is very significant as well. What did the private eye say about 2 issues ago? Well, there is this piece dated the 26th of May 2023 in the Daily Star, which is headed WPFP further cuts food vouchers for Rohingyas, which is less than 9 cents per meal. The United Nations World Food Program, that is WFP, has cut food vouchers for Rohingyas in Cox's Bazar to just $8 or less than 9 cents per meal, just weeks after Thousands of refugees lost their homes to Cyclone Mocha, putting another blow to them. Now, this is just a tip of the iceberg. Whereas the idea that these people were declared Bangladeshis and kind of infiltrators to a pure Burma meant for non Bangladesh, non Muslims is an outrage. It should have been on the table permanently for the last 6 years, and it hasn't been. And one of the reasons why it hasn't been is because Sheikh Hasina has been complicit with the criminal, war criminal, criminal against humanity, Narendra Modi. Because shortly after the massacres and the genocides that came to light in 2017, Modi paid a visit to Rangoon and congratulated the military and Aung San Suu Kyi. Back home in India, he raised the temperature against the small number of Rohingyas that managed to enter India. And the Rohingyas have been under hot hostile environment ever since. The human rights of the Rohingyas could be one of the biggest urgent humanitarian issues to be raised on international levels, with all kinds of positive outcome, both for the Rohingyas and also for Bangladesh and for other victims. But Bangladesh has not played a leading part. And there comes in Khaleda Zia, the so called leader of the opposition in waiting. She, the last time that I noticed any comment attributed to her about the Rohingyas, whether she wanted the Rohingyas to be accepted back by the Burmese. What a stupid thing to say. They massacred them, they genocided them, they burned them, they raped them, they robbed them, they looted them. So the priority should be, even now, 10th of July 2023, to demand that Burma withdraws all the obstacles against basic legitimate human rights of the Rohingyas and other minorities in Burma. And that the international community, led by a de facto, really rigorous agency connected with the United Nations organization, is able to supervise for about 20 years, for a generation, the Burmese, non Rohingya Burmese in control, treatment of the Rohingyas. What is stopping them? The thing that is stopping them saying that, making the demand, is the lack of intellect, lack of concern, lack of care. We shall, of course, be updating on this in due course. Now, there is a piece about the piece about the so-called partial reignition of the so-called jihadis in Syria or Syrian territories, wherever they are, and that women that are misdescribed as jihadi brides in the UK media, apparently fighting. Can you believe this? What is coming? They're fighting to become the brides of the top jihadi men? I mean, where to begin to condemn this whole thing about this? There is no sign that any of the human rights that have been violated, any of the abused children like Shamima Begum and her friends, they are victims of abuse. Who is holding to account those who abuse these children, are abusing the children, are abusing the other people under the pretext of the so called Islamic State? Back to Whitechapel Road and the East London Mosque, where the so called Sisters Forum, an alleged part of the alleged Islamic Forum Europe, which has since craftily changed its name. These, whoever and however, whatever the number was of these sisters constituting the forum, they held the first one of the four, Sharmina Begum, and then the other three followed. Now, there is no sign anywhere at any level that whoever operating from the East London Mosque played any part in the departure of these girls from Tower Hamlets, from England to Syria, is going to be held to account. No sign at all. Equally, there is no sign that the local Tower Hamlets Council, which has violated its legal obligations to provide the service that it owes to children under the legal obligation called safeguarding children's duties. Hamlets Council is not being held to account for that. And Hamlets Council was not being held to account while Lutfur Rahman was incumbent for the first 5 years since October 2010 until he was ousted, kicked out by Richard Morey, the election commissioner, in the ruling on the 23rd of April 2015. Nor while John Biggs was in place after Ruth Rahman was ousted. Nor is it being held to account since John Biggs lost the post and the post has been now held by Lutfur Rahman since the 5th of May, I think, 2022. And there is no sign among the so-called mainstream politicos of any party or affiliation, among the white ones anyway, to investigate what happened to these girls. And what are the lessons? And most certainly, there is no mention whatsoever by any of the so called elected councillors. Tower Hamlets councillor, the sit on Tower Hamlets council, however facile and artificial that being a councillor each one is. Nobody has stopped them from speaking, but they have not spoken. Same applies to the two so called members of parliament. For the two parliamentary constituencies that exist within the borough of Hamlets. One is Roshnara Ali and the other is Afsana Begum. Politically, these could be not existent at all. We shall be raising questions about these two and the councillors, etc., in due course. Let's check on the other topics that might be of relevance. This week it is, of course, the week of Esmoth Ali and Watir Ali. Come to that in a minute. Now, there is a piece in the new SS running the main heading attributed to Luthuraman, saying that he is only a humble local politician. Now, of course, the New Statesman, we call it the New SS, because we want to include the period when it became temporarily New Statesman and Society. But the reason why I abbreviated the name into New SS is to refer to the Hitler's Nazi party. Because the New SS, far from being a revolutionary, pro democratic, ethical outfit in the British so called journalism field, is as corrupt as the rest of Fleet Street, as racist and as ignorant and as anti-Muslim. But in the context of their giving the platform to Luthuraman, they are stupider than the Guardian has been during the period when Lutheraman was in place until the ouster. He got ousted on the 23rd of April 2015. Whoever briefed Lutheraman for this new SS propaganda was, of course, doing that in order to create the misconception that he was not a crook and that he was fit for purpose. Now, this is the introduction. Because of the paywall, whatever, I'll be only able to read the first part of the first paragraph. And part of the first paragraph is: over the past 15 years, Lutfur Rahman, the mayor of Tower Hamlets in East London, has been accused of electoral malpractice, autocratic tendencies, links with Islamist organizations, cronyism, bribery, corruption, manipulation of the media, and self delusion. Lutfur Rahman's history reads like a dictionary of political scandal, yet he endures. In the 2020 local elections, Labour, that is the party, lost 23 seats to Lutfur Rahman's party, Aspire, and he reclaimed the mayoralty. Now that is up to the point where I can see the just about see the bits. Now this piece is going to be a repeat. When I do access this, which I shall be doing, not this during this edition, but I shall be doing this between now and the next edition, and I shall be reading the full contents. And then accordingly I shall update the commentary in the next edition of the Khoodeelaar television channel. Lutfur Rahman is a proven liar, which is very bad. And he is intellectually seriously flawed in terms of cognitive abilities. Okay? As I have said, he doesn't understand straightforward questions. The one that I've mentioned before, and for those who are familiar with this, it would be easier to refer to that again. The hustings, so called, that took place at the Business Development Centre based in the Greater X Street, some date, maybe a week, not more than a week before the actual election, so called, for the mayor post, October 2010. In October 2010, the husting took place at that Business Development Centre. And for photographic logistics, I stood behind the candidates with my camera, my video camera at that time, the video camera that had been bought by K. Jordan with her bank card. I don't have a bank card, so K. Jordan bought that camera, Sony camcorder, in late April 2010. So I stood right behind the candidates that were there at the hustings. Lutfur Rahman was there was the Conservative, and there was the Lib Dems. The Labour Party candidate was not there. But the evening No Standards reporter, David Cohen, asked Lutfur Rahman the following question, and I'm not quoting, I'm giving paraphrase. He said, "Why have you not, or have you stopped your supporters from spreading," the intention was the lie or the untruth, that Abbas Uddin alias Halal, I'm using the name that I have updated for Abbas Uddin alias Halal, not Halal Abbas, beat up his former wife. So the contents, the components of that question, how many? What action Luthraman did about Luthraman supporters, about the allegation against Abbas Uddin alias Halal that he beat up his former wife? Now, there is four main components. And in none of those components, either separately or together, does it appear that David Cohen was asking Luthraman anything about it. Luthraman beating up his wife? There is no hint that David Cohen said that Luthraman was beating his wife or had beaten up his wife. So, what should Luthraman have said in response to that question from David Cohen? He should have said, my supporters do not do that, or my supporters have stopped doing that, or something like that. Instead, Luthraman said, I have not beaten up my wife. And Luthraman went to some detail, repeating that. And then from behind where David Cohen was sitting, there was a female voice which claimed to be the voice of the wife of Luthraman. And that voice said that she, being Luthraman's wife, had not been beaten up by Luthraman. Think about that. How total is the misunderstanding and misrepresentation? Now, the new SS individual who has written the promotion for Luthraman obviously doesn't know that. And I doubt even if he were present, he would have made the point, or he would have understood the point that I have made and I understood and I am appalled by. Luthraman is cognitively not fit for purpose. Nothing to do with his abilities, politically, character, policy, whatever. Luthraman is not clever enough, intelligent enough to hold that post. Now, that post is not something that I accept, of course, but for theoretical reasons, even if that post were a post, an executive post, giving executive decision making options and concepts. So, if Luthraman doesn't understand such a basic question and misrepresents it in his so called reply, then imagine how many issues in the council's list of issues that the council should deliver as duties are getting mistaken by Luthraman, and because of his lack of intelligence, lack of cognitive abilities, not because of any policy which may be added to the problem, but basically Luthraman has got cognitive lack of understanding. I'll come to that again before this edition is finished. Sometime between 2013 and 2014, sometime before the election, so called the election that caused the petition against him, Luthraman sent a message to me by a Alibor Chaudhry. Now, Lutfur Rahman was not even born when I began political action and campaign, and my politics has been consistent, emphatic, and cognitively not challenged at any stage. So he had the temerity and the stupidity of sending a message by Alibor Chaudhry. I don't remember the exact message in terms of words, but the substance was that would I go to the meeting that they were holding at a venue in the Canary Wharf somewhere to help Lutfur Rahman's cause as a candidate for the election to the post of mayor at the 2014 election. Now, anyone who knew what I had been saying for at least 5 years, starting from January 2010, would know that I would not go to that because I was opposing the post itself. I was opposing the post of mayor itself, so I would not go there. Now, how dare Lutfur Rahman expect me? I mean, how dare Lutfur Rahman have expected me to go there? And the idea was that I would speak for him. That is that is so bad that I haven't got words to condemn him by using those words on the record. But what it proves was that Lutfur Rahman didn't understand that I had been opposing the post, not him or anybody, whoever else would be the candidate for that post. I was opposing the post. So unless he thought that I was another liar from the Bangladeshi crew, which I am not, I never am. The whole point of my being outside of Bangladesh is because in Bangladesh there is nothing. There is no forum, there is no platform, there is no way that you can conduct independent discourse. That's the reason I'm out of Bangladesh, really. And that's the biggest political discrepancy and deficit. I'm on the record condemning all the Bangladeshi political parties and those who are not necessarily aligned to parties but are politically, opportunistically aligned with party or not party. I know all these ones that were active in the 1960s onwards. None of them matched the standards. And I've spoken about Anatullah Khan, who was praised as being very clever. He was the one who founded the English language weekly Holiday. And I told him off. It's not a secret. So I'm not in Bangladesh because in Bangladesh there is no acceptable, bearable standard of discourse, free discourse, whatever. So when Lutfur Rahman asked Alibor Chaudhry for me to go to the Canary Wharf event, that showed Lutfur Rahman's basic stupidity. He would not have asked anybody. The other thing is the discourteous, shamelessly discourteous. How dare he ask Alibor Chaudhry to ask me to go there? He couldn't phone me. Was it because I would have told him off? That could be one of the reasons, but I think that he was also showing off because he, being ignorant, was consumed by the sense of the little man being in a post. How dare he? So the fact that he could do that to me in the population of Tower Hamlets shows the extent of his idiocy, disgraceful disrespect, and ingratitude. Now, Lutfur Rahman is the one that has caused severe damages to the population as a whole of Tower Hamlets and to the cause of humanity across the world because he has been lying with the criminals that have attacked and violated world exclusive, world exclusive original archives of original materials created by me under my initiative. These materials are not available anywhere. They're not available in the Oxford University libraries, they're not available in the British Library, they're not available anywhere else. That shows Lutfur Rahman's infinite depth of stupidity and idiocy. Lutfur Rahman colluded with a number of criminals in Tower Hamlets Council's employment, as well as the criminals operating from the East London Mosque complex, to create and to go along with the creation of as many obstacles and obstructions to my work. To them, the purpose was to stop me from rivaling them and becoming their contestant or their competitor. Now, if they know anything about the world, they know anything about society, they knew anything about me, they would never have done that. But that is what they have done. I have been, all my active periods, I have been offered positions in government, in whatever. And I've said no, and I'm continuing to say no. Because saying no to the government or executive position is not a negative, it's a positive for me because that means that I can research independently and think independently and create independently so that the wider humanity can benefit. I mean, where do we begin? So, Lutfur Rahman is not only a congenital liar, but he's congenitally deficient, as are his advisors and his crew. We shall be updating on Lutfur Rahman and the New Statesman, as I said, when I have full access to that article. That access I am not able to exercise while I'm doing the broadcast because to get the access, there are certain technical information that needs to be completed. So I'll do that for the next edition. This this is coming to an end, and before I bring this to an end, I'll say what we are doing about Esmoth Ali and Watir Ali. Esmoth Ali's murderers have still remained not held to account. Whoever plotted the attacks on Esmoth Ali and his close relation, Watir Ali, plus the actual people who perpetrated the attacks, remain to be brought to justice. And the Committee for Bangladeshi's Rights in the United Kingdom, which was founded as a consequence of the murder of Esmoth Ali and the subsequent arrests of the nearly 50 people, the Committee for Bangladesh Rights was created by me. Now, if you look at the last 51 years, let's say, since I've been active on the soil of the England, all the campaigns that have taken place for the major issues affecting the Bangladeshis as well as other people, I have been initiating them, organizing them, and leading them. Think about that. 51 years. Now, 51 years, I have done that. In my memory, without receiving any funding from any state agency or from any individual, the only individuals that have contributed anything have done that towards tokens, small amounts, paying thousands of the cost of some operation. In addition to doing the big campaigns, I have kept people out of prison. Now, if those people were to seek the help of paid barristers or soul cheaters or whatever, they would never be able to get freedom, the freedom that I secured for them. And if they were to pay the money, they would not have enough money to pay even for one day's work. And I do that all for free. And I do that not in expectation that these people I save and help would show gratitude and thank me. Because these people are incapable of understanding the magnitude of the help that I give them. If I make a list, it would be literally thousands of people I've been helping. So, anyone who has got any data that they have recorded about my speech or my attendance anywhere must make those available to me. It doesn't, none of the data belongs to them. Any satellite television channel that I have appeared on, including the one that is presented by, and I'm about to give the name of one, Reza Ahmad Faisal Chaudhry, must not assume that he or they have got any right to keep them. I tell Faisal Chaudhry, Reza Ahmad Chaudhry, Shuaib, to hand over those items to me in full. Don't make me go to town, as they say. Give them to me, Shuaib. I'm asking in good faith, give them to me. As for his brother in law, the so called barrister Soul Cheetah, apologized to me and paid damages for your conspiracy with Aziz Chaudhry of the SSBA and your lying complicity and your contact with the criminal woman, racist, Stephanie McDonald. 'Macdonald. 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 ' And I extend this to Khabar Mahi Firdaus Jalil. Give all the data and records you have of my action. Give those to me without any need for me to target you. And I extend to others who have materials that belong to me, including the two sons of the late Abdul Salik. The younger son recorded a whole meeting on the video that took place in the Shiba restaurant in January 2011, January 2010. Give that full video intact to me, Uchchol and Shachchol, together with all the videos that your father made of me without my knowledge, or and the documents that he has had that belong to me. I shall continue an update on the list of the people that have materials that belong to me, legally belong to me, and they must return those things. So, bringing an end to this particular edition at 08:22 hours, between 08:22 to 08:23 GMT, and the length of this particular broadcast has been 1 hour, just about 22 minutes, I think, by the time we finish this one.